Alright, let's get started with this tutorial. It basically takes the idea of a timer that we just looked at in how to create timers if you watch that tutorial, and just adds to it a little bit. Wrong one. There we go. So again, I'm going to start with my basic Code Sculptor outlines where it doesn't do much. And what I want to do is I want to add a timer, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And again, I can call my timer anything, so I try to create good timer names, not just timer. And when I create the timer, I tell it how often to click. So let me just start at 1 second and the function I want to run if I create it. And then I want to go ahead and start my timer. And, oh, I don't know why I have this stop equals true thing here, but that's left over. So now we have a function we need to create called tick. So that's all the basics of actually creating something. And then I want something to happen here, right? So let's just say I have a variable called clock, and I want clock to go up by 1 every time that it ticks. And so of course I have to say global clock, and up here I have to say clock equals 0. I apologize for those who watched the tutorial. This is everything that we just did in the tutorial, and you already know it all, but sometimes it's good to see it all again. So we're going to say canvas draw text because I want to put this one on the screen. Let's take the string of clock and put it somewhere on the screen and make it a certain size and make it a certain color. And when I run it, there I go, and it's ticking away. Okay, good. Now, the trick of the stopwatch program is to do something like if my seconds get to 60, then my seconds need to start over again and my minutes need to go up. So the big question is, how do you do that? So that's what I call this idea of a time turnover. Just real quick, what would happen if I changed it to 100? So now it's tenths of a second. So see how much faster it's going to go? And every time this gets up to another second, this is a second, this is the tenths of the second. So what if I want to reset it every time I get to a tenth of a second? So what are some options I have? So it's basically a bunch of if statements. If my clock ever gets too big, so if my clock gets, well, it's really equal to 10, but let me just say greater or equal to 10, then what do I want to have happen? Well, what I want is I want my clock to restart. So now it goes to 10, and it never even shows you 10, it goes back down to 0. But how do I keep track of how many seconds I have? Well, that means I need another variable. Seconds goes up by 1. So now I have clock and I have seconds. So I have clock here and I have seconds here. And then I could run it. Okay, great. It's not doing anything. Well, that's because I didn't print out seconds. So now, what if I was to make a new variable? And I called this variable something like display. And I say that display equals the string of how many seconds I have plus a period plus a string of where I am on my clock. So now I've got kind of a format here. And up here, I don't actually need to display the string of something anymore. Display is a string. So I can just say display. Now I'm going to do that, and it's going to give me some errors because display is, yes, a global variable. So I make display go there. I make display maybe equal nothing at the beginning. And when I run it, because the display equals nothing, oh, never mind. It starts so fast that you can't tell. See, so now this is my seconds. It's going up by 1 every time this reaches 10. And it goes on like that. Now, there's a little bit of an odd thing if you noticed it. For when it gets to 10, it's a little bit annoying because it looks so pretty here. And when it gets to 10, it now has 2 digits. And so it moves over a little bit. Ready? Watch, it shifts. Boom. And on a stopwatch, you don't want that to happen, right? So on a stopwatch, when I'm counting 0 to 9 seconds, really I should have 0 to, like, the number 0 there. So how do I do that? How do I make this, force this to be, you know, 2 decimal places when it doesn't want to be, or, well, not decimal places, but 2 places when it doesn't want to be? And the answer is that there's a thing called zfill. And now that I've said that, boy, I hope I remember how to do this. Is it string.zfill2 that says force it to be 2? Let me see. There it is. Yeah. Or if I want, I could do this one, .zfill. Oop, let me reset that. And then this one would be like, see, that doesn't work great because we don't want the 0 to be here. We wanted the 0 to be after it. So that's different. A z-fill, the 0 fill, if you will, is if you want a leading 0. So it wouldn't make sense to do it for your end piece, but it would make sense to do it for your seconds. Now, what do I do if my seconds gets up to 60? Like, how do I make it go to a minute, right? So, well, if my seconds get up to a certain number, let's just say 5, let's pretend like a minute is 5 seconds long, then my seconds have to restart, and my minutes have to go up. And I need to add minutes, and I need to add minutes, and I need to add minutes to my display. So, string of minutes, let's 0 fill that string, plus a colon, plus all the other stuff that we did. All right, so now we're starting to get somewhere. And of course, I told it every 5 seconds. So you can see, oh, I did greater than 5, so it's every 6 seconds, I guess. Is that it now thinks it's another minute. And so this never gets up to 10 now because it's resetting, but we got ourselves a basic stopwatch. So we would just have to do this the right ways, and then we'd be able to create a stopwatch on our screen.